Good afternoon. My name is Sam Tatham, and this is Ashley Hemmen and Tanna Gillespie, and we're students from Southern Illinois University, and we're going to talk to you today about what we've been doing for our work with Ithaca College. So, Ithaca College or the city of Ithaca is located in southeast New York, and or southwest New York, I'm sorry, and it is about 3.5 hours away from New York City. Ithaca has a pretty rich history. It's been a founder and very innovative in a lot of political movements, so it was really big with the push of women's rights. It's located in Tompkins County, and it was founded in 1789. It's also the home of the College of Cornell, and that's one of the big campuses that is in Ithaca College. Our site specifically is called the Chainworks site, and the Chainworks site was founded in, in the early 1900s, and it started off as a place where they made chains for the city of Ithaca, and they distributed them out through the city. It later turned into a plane manufacturer during the Second World War, and during this time period, they used a lot of chemicals on the site that actually turned the ground into kind of a toxic sludge, and it is now classified as a brownfield. So our project is working on redeveloping this site. This is just a breakup of what Ithaca College is, or the city of Ithaca is. So their biggest industry in Ithaca is the education, because they have two main colleges there. There's Ithaca College, which is the closest to our site, and there's also Cornell, and that makes up about half the population of the city. The majority of the city is under the age of 25, and they are very young just because a majority of their city is college students. During the summer times, they told us that the population there drops from around 35,000 to about 20,000 or 15,000. So it gets to be very, very empty during the summer months. These are just looking at some of the project challenges we had during our finding our system and how we implemented it through the system. So Ithaca is a very mountainous region. There's large hills and valleys and gorges throughout the site that are caused by some of the rivers that go through. Just on our side alone, we have some drops that are anywhere from 50 to 70 feet, and we have vast changes throughout the rest of the city that we had to account for when choosing a Podcar system. And this is looking at a figure ground kind of our site. So I'm going to point out some of the main areas. In the top right corner in that kind of red color, that's just a little bit of this College of Cornell, and that takes up about half the city size. We opted to not show the whole thing because we didn't do much up there. In that blue to the left of it, that is their kind of downtown area, which they call the Commons, and that's where they have a lot of their retail and restaurants and stuff like that. To the left of that, in the bottom in the yellow, is their kind of big box shopping district. So they have places like Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, places like that where they can have their goods shipped in. And then in the purple at the bottom, that is Ithaca College, and that's where it's a little smaller than Cornell, but it's another one of their main industries in town. And then in the center there in the orange, that's our site where we decided to locate our hub for our Podcar system.
And then also the red line going through all of these districts shows where we were proposing the Podcar system to be built. And then the larger dots on this line are the stations that we were proposing to help connect each of these districts to make it more walkable, since it is so hilly. Or I guess not walkable, but like able to be accessed. So then this is just looking at our site. We analyzed they have very steep slopes, where the wind patterns, sun patterns come from, where a lot of the traffic movement is in the existing buildings, along with the beautiful views, which you saw in previous pictures. And then this map shows Ithaca is a really walkable city, and I'll talk about how walkable it is in a later slide. But this map is showing their trailway system that connects the colleges in different districts throughout the town. So that's what the purple lines represent, and our site is in the orangish color. And then here is the full loop of our Podcar system, with the squares on the line being where our stations are proposed, and that's showing that we're connecting those districts. And the dotted circles around those stations represent walkability. So the inner line is about a 5-minute walk, and then the outside line is about a 10-minute walk. So you can see that we place them fairly frequently, making them easily accessed throughout the town and able to be used. And then I think also to get from like the farthest point of like one end of the town to the other, the max was, and then this map shows Ithaca is a really walkable city, and I'll talk about how walkable it is in a later slide. But this map is showing their trailway system that connects the colleges in different districts throughout the town. So that's what the purple lines represent, and our site is in the orangish color. And then here is the full loop of our Podcar system, with the squares on the line being where our stations are proposed, and that's showing that we're connecting those districts. And the dotted circles around those stations represent walkability. So the inner line is about a 5-minute walk, and then the outside line is about a 10-minute walk. So you can see that we place them fairly frequently, making them easily accessed throughout the town and able to be used. And then I think also to get from like the farthest point of like one end of the town to the other, the max was, I think it took 11 minutes, was the farthest or the longest that you would be riding the Podcar system if you went to the other end of town. And then this diagram represents how we are thinking that the Podcar system could be used as a delivery route too. So not only for people, but for packages. So the green box right here, that's right along their main road, which is Highway 13. And that would be like kind of the main central distribution center. So that's where the trucks would pull in and drop off their packages to be distributed throughout this route to the different commercial areas throughout the town. Then this is also looking at the average commute time throughout Ithaca. So the most common travel distance is about 10 to 14 minutes, and that is by car. However, the most frequently used mode of travel would be walking. And that's about 40% of the town walks to work, school, or wherever they go, which for the U.S., that's a really high percentage. So it's kind of a surprising. But then after that, driving alone is the next use. And then public transit, they also have a bus system there, but it's not used very much throughout the day. And they were talking about how expensive it was since they don't have enough riders. So I think that the Podcar system, implementing the Podcar system to this city would be really beneficial because it's based on demand instead of just running all the time and costing money.
So these are just some of the statistics we looked at. So the average commuting distance in the city of Ithaca is about 3.5 miles. And so a new PRT system could dramatically reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that are emitted. And if 20% of these people that drive to work use the PRT system, they will be able to cut 3,772,600 miles off the road. That is over 2,000 tons of CO2 that will not be emitted annually. That's equivalent to planting over 10,000 trees. By not using a car to commute to work, they will save over $1 million annually on gas. And she mentioned the bus system earlier. That's their TCAT system. And for an annual bus pass, that costs about $450. And we were kind of looking at Morgantown's PRT system, which we got a chance to visit. And it's 50 cents per trip. So we kind of based ours off of that a little bit. And if we went that direction, people of Ithaca could save about $190 per year. Okay, so we looked at a few different PRT systems, and we chose to go with number 7, the suspended guideway. So we kind of looked at the Futran system. Some of the benefits was use existing right-of-ways, lower track costs, snow, rain, and mud immune, which is good because they get in northern New York there, they get some snow. A main reason where we chose this was because our terrain had a lot of slopes, and this was one system that could handle that slope. Okay, so the Futran system can hold 6 to 8 people. It can reach speeds of 30 miles an hour, and to completely travel our big transit loop, it'll take about 22 minutes. And the connection from downtown to the site will take just about a minute and a half. And to get anywhere within the town will take less than 11 minutes. There will be 10 stations strategically placed along our route. And there will be about 20 pod cars per station, which means about 200 pod cars altogether. This was one station proposal, so this would kind of be the typical station that's placed throughout the town along the other roads not within our site.
This is just kind of another look at it, so you can see that you come up and you get into the system and you've got elevator access. Go to the next one. And then we also wanted to have solar panels on these to help try to make the system more sustainable to the environment, since Ithaca is such a big sustainable city with all their walking and bike sharing that they do. And for our main kind of pods hub, we wanted to make it more of like a sculptural piece. So we looked at kind of trying to play with the different ways that the pod cars could come in and how it would look and how people could interact with it on the site. And this is just an elevation view of it showing how cars can still access underneath it, and people are on the higher plane. And then again, this is just a second rendition that we did to show like the sculpture aspect of it.
So this is the road that's going, the primary road that's going through our site. And you can see the elevational change throughout this road. Up here to the top, this is where our site is. And then this road down here goes to downtown. And then we highlighted here a zoomed in version of the railway at the angled slope. And then as far as another street section, currently it's a two-way street, and we are proposing it as a one-way street that follows the one-way street nearby and connects to that. And so you'd have your parking here, and then drivability, or like a driving road area for cars. And then this other car lane that's existing would be turned into a PRT system that allows for biking and walking here along the sidewalk. And then you've got a couple of residential houses on both sides. So this is our site, and looking at the Podcar system in a zoomed in way. So this is the kind of sculptural iconic element that we would use as our main transportation hub. But then we'd also have other stations nearby as other spurts. And this shows also the existing versus the new buildings that we'd be creating on our site. And then here's some of the programming that we'd have with it. So this would primarily be seen as a commercial residential space with the commercial on the bottom, residential on the top, and then more commercial space leading to, this is like college student residential for the nearby college right here. And then manufacturing, and then the rest is all commercial. And then these are just some sustainability aspects that we looked into, such as like a solar rooftop for the existing parking garage and parking space there, and reuse and adaptability of buildings, along with water collection building, because you can't use a lot of the water on the site since it is a brownfield site.
When redeveloping the Chainwords District site, we looked into the lead neighborhood credentials, and we tried to mark as much of these topics off as we could. So brownfield redevelopment was one, the redevelopment of existing buildings was another, keeping natural spaces for natural vegetation and wildlife, and steep slope protection to kind of work with the topography as we could and not have to manually work with that as much as possible we could avoid. So how our Podcar system can kind of help the town. It's easier to understand than the bus system because when we were there, we kind of looked into it ourselves and didn't really know where we were going. Better connection between downtown, Ithaca College, and Cornell as well. Creates another city node, especially on our redeveloped site, to kind of connect that to the downtown. And that creates more opportunities for businesses and things to develop up there. And it can be used as an incentive for visitors of the town and the college to kind of use the track so it can come to hotels and different things and kind of bring the town together.